Good day, everyone. Today we are going to be talking about the prepositions in, on, and at. They are prepositions of time and place. Firstly, let's identify what the preposition is. A preposition is a word or group of words used to link nouns, pronouns, and phrases to other words in a sentence. Some examples of prepositions are single words like in, at, on, both, to, by, and with or phrases such as in front of, next to, instead of. Prepositions in English are most frequently dictated by fixed expressions. While there are some general guidelines to follow, many prepositions are used idiomatically with certain verbs. In these cases, it is best to memorize the phrase instead of the individual preposition. A few rules for usage. Although there are hardly any rules as to when to use which preposition, most commonly prepositions define relationships between nouns and locate words, actions, or ideas in a particular time or place. So let's begin with prepositions of time. Is it in the morning, on the morning, or at the morning? Why did we say at Christmas but on Christmas Day? Why do you go in a taxi but on a bus? That's what we are going to discuss in today's lesson. Let's start with an in, on, and at the prepositions of time. When we look at in, on, at, we move from general to more specific. That's a really good way to think of things. In is very general, on is quite general, and as it's normally more specific. Let's take a look at in first. Firstly, we use in to talk about periods of time, general periods of time, because in is very general, as we have mentioned before. In the future, in the past, in the present. Let's see some examples. In the future, I would like to have my own Jeep. In the past, I studied really hard with school. In is also used to talk about years and individual years like 1991, for example, groups of years, decades, and centuries. In 1994, I was born. I was born in 90s. My grandfather was born in the 19th century. We also use in to talk about seasons. These are big parts of the year. In summer, in spring, in winter, in autumn. In autumn, I love seeing the changing of the leaves. In spring, I feel really positive. We also use in to talk about months and weeks. In June, November, in 5 weeks' time, in a week's. These all use in. In June, I will be 38. And lastly, we use in to talk about parts, general parts of days. For example, in the morning, in the afternoon, in the evening, I like to relax and play board games. So, that's clear that in is general. Now, let's move on to on. It's much more specific, but not quite as specific as at. We use on to talk about dates. For example, on the 10th of May 1991, I was born. Another example, on his birthday, he went out for the meal. We also use on to talk about holidays that include the word day. On Christmas Day, on New Year's Day, on a bank holiday. Let's see what's a bank holiday. A bank holiday is a day where schools are closed and normally people don't have to work, and most importantly, banks are closed. That's why it gets its name. They normally fall on a Monday, so they had nice long weekend. So we don't say on Christmas, but we do say on Christmas Day. We also use on 4 days of the week. On Monday, on Friday evening, on Saturday morning. On is also used for days of the month. On the 1st of July. On the 1st day of September. So remember, in American English and British English, they say this differently. In British English, they say on the 5th of May, and in American English, May 5th. To refer to extended type, we use the prepositions since, for, by, during, from, to, from, until, with, and within. Let's see some examples. I have lived in Minneapolis since 2005. He will be in Toronto for 3 weeks. She will finish her homework by 6 o'clock. We have one miscellaneous, slightly random one, and that is on time. I arrived to work on time at the correct time. Okay, let's move on to at. The most specific preposition we use at to talk about specific times. For example, at 10 a.m., at 3 o'clock, at lunchtime, at sunset, sunrise. It's a moment. Right now, you will often see us saying ATM for at the moment in spoken slang English. What are you doing, ATM? What are you doing at the moment? That's a good one to remember. We also use at to talk about holidays without the word day. So, at Christmas. At Christmas, I like to spend time with my family. At Easter. So, it's on Easter Sunday or at Easter when we are talking about the whole weekend of Easter. One last miscellaneous one we have, it is at night. So, let's move on to in, on, and at as prepositions of place. And I have some good news. In, on, and at as prepositions of place also follow the same rule as before. In is more general, on is in the middle, and it's more specific. If you are stuck in an exam, just keep that in your head. At least you can have a good estimation of which preposition to use. Let's start with an in again. Nice and general in. In used to talk about countries. I'm in England. He's in Ireland. They are in Uzbekistan. We live in France. We also use in talk about cities, very general ones again. I stayed in Jakarta. In Jakarta. In Seville. When I went to Italy, I stayed Palermo. In Palermo. Like cities, we also use in for neighborhoods and large areas. For example, in the Cotswolds. The Cotswold is the beautiful large area of England. Or in Kensington, that's a big neighborhood in London. We also use for enclosed spaces. We use in for enclosed spaces, and this is an important one to remember. We are in a taxi, in a car. Now, I'll talk about trains and buses later on, because we don't use in with them, we use up. And I like to think that because taxis, cars, and helicopters are smaller spaces, and you have to crouch down and make yourself small to get into them, we use in. We also use in for in classroom. In a classroom, in the house, in the books. Finally, we use in for books and newspapers. In the Times, in the dictionary. I found the definition in the dictionary. I saw that in the newspaper. And now, let's move on to on. This is less general than it, but not quite as specific as at. We use on to talk about streets, or roads, or avenues. On Fleet Street, for example. On Fifth Avenue. On the King's Roads. We also use on to talk about surfaces. On the floor, on the ceiling, on the roof, on the table. We also use on to talk about floors of buildings. Her office is on the first floor. I am on the top floor. Important, we use on to talk about public transport. On the train, on a bus, on a plane. So it's in a taxi, car, helicopter, but on a train, bus, tram, and plane. So these are less enclosed spaces in general. You can enter them and remain standing up. That's how I like to think of them. Finally, we use on for communications and media. For example, on the TV, on the internet, on the news, meaning on news on TV, on the radio. I was on the radio last week. Did you hear me? Finally, we have at, very specific usually. We use at for addresses. For addresses, these are very specific. At 10th High Street or at the Red House, Bedford Street. We also use at for specific locations. I'm at the bus stop. He is at the museum. At is also used for shops. At a coffee shop, at a bakery, at a butcher's. So dears, next, we also use at for group activities. Let's say at a party, at a concert, at a theater. An important one to remember is that we use at for home, work, and places of study. I'm at school. I'm at university. I'm at work. I'm at home. We also use at with top, bottom, and start for exactly. At the end of the river. At the top of the beach. At the bottom of the stairs. And finally, this one is slightly strange, but do you remember I said we use on for surfaces? So my laptop is on my desk. However, I'm sitting at my desk. You sit at the table, at surface, but you put your things on the table, on the surface. If I were to get up and sit on top of my desk, then I would be on the desk. Let's move on to preposition of movement. Prepositions of movement are also called prepositions of direction. The following prepositions are used to indicate direction as we have mentioned before. Prepositions of movement show movement from one place to another one. To another place. These prepositions always describe movement and we usually use them with verbs of motion. The most common preposition of movement is the preposition to which describes movement in the direction of something. For example, direction preposition examples. Let's see. Across. The red ball bounced across the blue line. Against. The red ball rolled against the blue box. Along. The red ball is rolling along the blue line. Around. The red ball is rolling around the blue box. Away from. The red ball is rolling away from the blue box. Down. The red ball is rolling down the blue stairs. The next one is from. The red ball is coming from the blue box. Next preposition of movement is into. The red ball is bouncing into the blue box. Off of. The red ball is rolling off of the blue box. Next preposition is onto. The red ball is bouncing onto the blue box. Out of. The red ball is bouncing out of the blue box. The next one is over. The red ball is bouncing over the blue box. Through. The red ball is rolling through the hole in the blue box. Next example is to. The red ball is rolling to the blue box. The next one is towards. The red ball is rolling toward the blue box. Next preposition is under. The red ball is rolling under the blue box. Next one is up. The red ball is rolling up the blue stairs. To refer to a direction, use the prepositions to, in, into, on, and onto. She drove to the store. Don't ring the doorbell. Come right into the house. Drive on the grass and park the car there. To refer to extended time, use the prepositions since, for, by, during, from, to, from, until, with, and within. Let's see some examples. I have lived in Metropolis since 2005. I moved there in 2005 and still live there. She will finish her homework by 6 o'clock. It means that she will finish her homework sometime. So dears, it's all for today's lesson. I hope that it will be useful for you, and bye for now.